and Otom in Port Harcourt and the PDP handling of the issue of the G5 governors. And we'll also be looking at when presidential campaign of the PDP will resume this new year. And to do that with us is the spokesperson for the Presidential Campaign Council, Charles Aniagwu, who joins us now virtually. Charles, good morning.
Good morning,
and
Charles.
Happy New Year.
Welcome to a new year.
Good morning, Happy New Year.
I'm sure you're excited. I mean, the elections are fast approaching, a couple of hours, and then people will go into the polls, and I'm sure you're very emphatic that PDP will take the Togo away. But let's wait till the ballots count. To start with this conversation, the endorsement by, of course, His Excellency Obasanjo, the elder statesman, has raised a lot of precautions. But what are your takes on this?
Well, I can tell you that Obasanjo is somebody who enjoys respect across the length and breadth of this country. And so if he endorses a candidate, it makes some sense. But for us, we are quite comfortable with the endorsement we have received from Nigerians. And that could be seen from different rallies where you have organic convergence of Nigerians in any of those rally points. But at the end of the day, their vote is what matters most than any other thing. We would have loved that he, just like he did in 2019, he endorsed Atiku, he supported him because he believed that Atiku have got what it takes. And you know, democracy provides you the latitude to make choices. He has made his own choice. We do believe that most Nigerians are already making their own choices. And from what we see, Atiku is favored to win this election. And so we don't have any problem with Obasanjo endorsing anybody. That is democratic right. You can't take it away from him. But Nigerians, at the end of the day, are the ultimate persons that will make the ultimate choice of who governs them for the purpose of recovering our country for where we are at the moment. And so he has made his own choice, and we do not begrudge him.
Is the PDP ruffled at all by this endorsement? And I'm asking this because in doing that endorsement, the former president did give some reasons, saying that the indices in Nigeria today does not guarantee or support having a president who is above 70 years of age and is rooting for youths to take over the leadership of the country.
Well, the first aspect of your question, the PDP and our Presidential Campaign Council, and indeed our president and his running mate are not ruffled. We do realize that from the beginning that we're going into a contest. And for it to be a contest, it means that you must square up with some other persons. It's not just going to be a roller coaster. That is why we have continued to interface with Nigerians across the length and breadth of this geopolitical zone. If it were to be a roller coaster, perhaps we'll just sit down and then help ourselves with a bottle of champagne and then waiting for the inauguration day. But that is not going to be a coronation. It's not like a traditional ruler where you think that the moment you've been nominated by people from your community, and then at the end of the day, on the day that you are to be coronated, you will just be giving your staff of office. But in the case of presidential election and a representative democracy for that matter, you are going into a contest. Nobody is an underdog. We do have respect for others who are contesting this election, but we do believe that we stand taller than any of the contestants. And as such, Nigerians are likely going to look in our direction because our presidential candidate and his running mate have got the credentials to be able to position our country and recover us from where we are at the moment. And so that a former president, who of course was a president under the PDP, have decided to pitch tent with another person is not something that will ruffle us. It only just strengthens us to begin to further deepen our interface with Nigerians, for them to understand that where we are headed, that Atiku Okowa are the only ones that have what it takes. I have said it the last time, that for you to become a president, there are a lot of boxes that we need to tick. We need to tick far beyond the issue of whether you are much younger in terms of age. We need to also look at the competence of the individuals who are coming on board. We need to look at their pedigree and what they have done in time past. I am happy that Obasanjo in 2019 in endorsing Atiku made it very, very clear that Atiku have got the experience and Atiku is the president for the time. You may need to go and research that to hear the views of Obasanjo with respect to Atiku in 2019. And I don't think anything has changed from those issues that Obasanjo raised as to the capability of Atiku to address the many challenges confronting us today. The challenges have become much more severe, which means it requires a man that have got the experience, that have gone the candle to be able to deal with these issues. Our brother PETER Obi was, of course, in the PDP up till the first quarter of the second quarter of this year, before he left to join the Labour Party. We do not begrudge him if he now enjoys the support of Olusegun Obasanjo. What we are confident about is that most Nigerians do know, going by the records of Atiku Abubakar and Ifeanyi Okowa, governor of Delta State, in the last number of years now, that these are the individuals that have got what it takes, ticking all the boxes to be able to address the challenges we have today. Yes, indeed, you need a president that will listen. Atiku Okowa are individuals who will always continue to listen to Nigerians and indeed ready to make amends when the need arises. So it's not the exclusive preserve of one presidential candidate to be able to listen. Oh. The fact is that there is a very huge difference between Atiku and the other persons who are in this race. In terms of the unity, because today we are very much challenged, Atiku is the one who have got the reach, just like Obasanjo said in 2019, both internationally and locally. And that is very much important. And so we're looking at those, everything that you need for the president for a time like this, in addition to the plurality of the issues that confront us. We are quite convinced that Atiku towers far above all the other presidential candidates, and which is why we are looking forward to Nigerians endorsing us, because their endorsement actually is the ultimate.
All right, Charles, quite said. Now, let's look at the fact that, I mean, one of the papers did say that His Excellency said, well, he's looking forward to seeing whether Nigerians will vote for recovery or vote for decline. But before we get that, the intrigues playing out in the PDP. Recently, we did see the G5 governors in the meeting in London. Well, there has been this narrative that they endorsed, or rather, were towing the line in having to play support for TINUBU, even though TINUBU had come out to say there was no such action. What's your take on that, especially as we go into the election, knowing that Rivers states and other states within those 5G governor states play a critical role in the election in 2023?
Well, we have continued to reach out to these leaders who are members of the G5, because we believe that as members of our party, that they working with us indeed more or less smoothing our ride to the Aso Rock presidential villa. But that in the midst of that, we do also recognize their democratic rights to be able to make certain choices. But that as they do so, they must recognize the role the party have played in their life. And that is why we are asking them to sheath their sword and return home. But much as we desire that they work with us, much as we desire that there should be peace in the party, we recognize that a peaceful Nigeria is much more important than any other peaceful group. And PDP being a group is desirous of a peaceful Nigeria. Atiku Abubakar and Ifeanyi Okowa are very much desirous of a peaceful Nigeria. And as we continue to ask that these are leaders return home, we will not, as a political party, tolerate a situation where anybody undermines the sanctity and indeed the value that we place on our democracy and the peace that exists, that we desire in this country. Which is why we are calling specifically the governor of Rivers State, who tends to be the leader of the G5, to indeed recognize that within that democratic rights of plurality of views and opinions, that there is a certain latitude that you must not tread beyond. That where your right ends is where another person's right begins. And that even if we recognize your right to be able to make a choice, as you so desire, and within the latitude allowed by democracy, that latitude does not extend strangulating the process of a democratic rights of other persons. And which is why we are urging him to tread softly and allow other persons to make their choices. You have followed through what is happening in Rivers State. That is not good for our democracy. It's not a question of just PDP. He has to a very large extent progressed in error, and while we continue to urge him to please come back home and work with us to recover our country for where we are, we will need to plead with him to recognize that this democratic journey, as nascent as it is very precious to Nigerians. And as such, it will not be tolerated by Nigerians, not even only those of us in the PDP, for him to continue to take actions that are inimical to the development of democracy. Revocation of a sea of O's of individuals who tend to have divergent views is not in line with democratic norms and principles. Then, of course, the issue of trying to hound down members of the party that do not agree with him is not also in line with the ethos of democracy. And so we plead with him to why he is allowed to have his own choice, because democracy offers him that right. He must also recognize that who may need the power that he wields at the moment, which of course is transient 5 months' time, that power will be over. Recognize their own rights. And so that's why the G5 should please come back home, because the party have done so much for them. It is said in the part of the country where I am from that if you do not eat the soup because of the food, you must also try to at least attempt to lick the soup because of the food. And so if he does not like Atiku Abubakar and Ifeanyi Okowa because of certain reasons best known to him, he must recognize that the party have done so much for him right from when he was chairman of Obi Akpo local government, all to this time that he became a governor, two-time governor of oil-rich River State. And as such, let him also respect the fact that the party have done well for him and decide to do the needful, which is to return home and help his party to win the election, because where we are now is not a period for acrobatics. It is period for us to begin to rebuild. It is period for us to recover. And in doing so, we need to march together in one accord as members of the PDP, the only party at the moment that is well positioned to be able to lead Nigeria out of the woods, because we have got what it takes in terms of the caliber of persons that are leading us, i.e. Atiku Abubakar and Ifeanyi Okowa, and indeed a cross-section of Nigerians who are members of the PDP. This time, the unity of this country is very paramount, and PDP is that party that have got what it takes to unite us. This time, recovering our economy is very, very important, and PDP is that party that have got what it takes to reach out beyond the party, to hunt for talents like Atiku and Obasanjo did between 1999 and 2007. And of course, we also saw Jonathan and Yar'Adua of blessed memory also carried through between the period they were in power and up to 2015, where they went out of the political party to reach out to other Nigerians, including those in the diaspora, to help them to reset our country. We need a country that will have to reset at the moment, and PDP is that party that will be able to do that.
All right, Charles, I hear you saying the G5 governors should return home. Is that the position really of the PDP at the moment? Election is just a month ahead. That's in February. And we hear Wike also saying that by this January, he's going to make the presidential candidate they are endorsing known. If the G5 governors decide not to come back home and want to rock the boat, how would the PDP react to this, knowing fully well that 5 governors of the PDP, you know, is not something you can just wish away during the election?
Even if it's one councillor, as a political party that have respect for every Nigerian, we will not wish that councillor away, let alone wishing a governor away. But we have said that we do desire that we work with these our governors, because to a very large extent, it will smoothen our ride into the Aso Rock presidential villa. But in the midst of our quest for a very smooth ride into the presidential villa, we do recognize that the road to that presidential villa at a time like this is quite rough, and likely you are going to have some turbulent rides. And we have been able to also provide enough cushion and proper seat bed to fasten our seat bed, so that while we drive into that presidential villa in the midst of this turbulence, that we're able to land smoothly in that particular villa. And that being the case, we are saying that our train, like we have mentioned a number of times, have moved, and we are moving very, very smoothly and with a very, very wonderful speed, which is why in a number of areas where we have stopped for the purpose of a presidential rally, you've seen the very organic nature of the crowd that thronged each hour for our presidential rally venue. And that tells you that most Nigerians are still very much desirous of a PDP that has inclusive DNA in their own operations. But if these are governors chose not to come back, in which case they remain hesitant, and in spite of the fact that we have informed them that yes, we are moving with very great speed, but that our train has very wonderful brake pads, and that we have got the right captains that can apply that brake pads whenever they choose to join the train. But in the event that they choose not to join the train, we will continue to move with that speed, moving very smoothly in the midst of that turbulent ride. But by the grace of God, Nigerians who ultimately have the power, who do recognize the fact that they need to get out of where we are at the moment, will be able to lead us, assisting us to ride smoothly into that presidential villa. Where we are now is not just a question of talking politics. It is quite obvious that the candidate of the APC have not got what it takes to be able to lead Nigeria out of the woods, because it's part of the major challenge we have at the moment. It is also very, very interesting that the candidate of the Labour Party does not have the electoral map and indeed the pathway to winning this election.
Okay.
The only thing that he may be doing is possibly reducing the number of votes, the threshold of victory for the PDP. But within that threshold, we will still be able to meet the constitutional requirement of 25% in at least 2/3 of the number of states in this country, and in which case 24 states, and also at the end of the day have majority of the votes. But let me tell you, Adora and Nkoli, that for us in the PDP, we are very much convinced that we will win the election. But we want to win and win very convincingly, because the more number of persons you have voting for you in an election helps to a very large extent, gives you that confidence that you have been able to have many persons on your side. And then you now begin to look for the other few that may be on the other side for the purpose of uniting all of us, and then having a much more less turbulent government. Because if you have majority of the persons in the National Assembly, majority of persons in the state houses of assembly, majority of governors in the state government houses, what that means that your policy becomes much more easier for you to implement, because you are not going to be going through a whole lot of stress. So for governors in the PDP, talking specifically now about this G5, who have said they will remain in the party, who have either their candidates, and of course 4 of them are candidates except Yeson Wike of Rivers, and that even in Rivers, they have as much as 51 candidates that are run on the platform of the PDP.
Okay.
The question is, if you decide to pitch your tent with other political party, what kind of policy are you going to ask them, particularly those who will be going to the National Assembly, to be focusing on? Remember, for a very long time, we have talked about a country that does not have political ideology. How do we begin to develop political ideology and allow it to flourish in an atmosphere of individuals picking and choosing who to support, and not moving along the line of their party and indeed advancing the manifesto of their political party? We'll continue to plead with them to return home for the purpose of having a country that functions and indeed function very effectively for all of us.